Here we go. So yesterday we learned that a shvuah is not chal on a dvar mitzvah, yet a neder is chal on a dvar mitzvah, because by the shvuah, when you swear not to do a mitzvah, you're directly opposing a mitzvah. But when you're making a neder, you're not dealing with the mitzvah at all. You're asking yourself to do a certain thing, and agavorcha, it's going to interfere with you doing the mitzvah. And that's why when we darshan lo yachal devarai, that only if it's a personal thing, it doesn't involve a mitzvah, only then will the neder be chal. That applies to shvuah, but to neder we say even it says Lashem ishki neder Lashem, even if it's involving a mitzvah, the neder will be chal. Which takes us to the next Mishnah on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Yesh neder b'soich neder. You can have a neder on top of another neder, but ve'ein shvuah b'soich shvuah. You can't have a shvuah on top of a shvuah. And we're going to shortly see what neder means. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. To Zok to Gemara. Ketzad, what is an example of yesh neder b'shech neder? Omar hareini nazir. So we're talking about Neziros. So clearly we see from the Mishnah that Neziros is a form of neder. And what did he say? Hareini nazir im oichel. If I eat this piece of cake today, I'm a kabbalah upon myself Neziros. Hareini nazir im oichel. He said it twice. And then the ochal, and he ate. So since he said two Nezirosim, chayev al kol achas va'achas. He's chayev for each Neziros. Now, what exactly that means is subject to an achloikos rishonim. We will start with the Ran. Let's just see the next half of the Mishnah. Shavua shaloi oichel, shavua shaloi oichel, v'ochal ein chayev al achas. So this clearly is the Mishnah offering up another example of a chomer min nedarim mi b'shavua. The last Mishnah tells us that there's a chomer that the Nedarim has over Shvuah, is that a neder levatlas a mitzvah will be chal, while a shvuah levatlas a mitzvah will not be chal. And now we have another chomer that yesh neder b'seich neder, then shvuah b'seich shvuah. We just don't know clearly what that means yet. So let's have a look at the Ram. Well, first let's see what it means. Right, and then we'll see how B'Sech fits in. So yesh neder b'sech neder, Amar hareini nazir im oichel. Mefarish b'Gemara. The Gemara explains, first of all, the oichel lav dafka. There's no reason to have created this condition. Excuse me. There's no reason to have created this condition to be told in Neziros in im oichel, because the same halacha would be if someone said hareini nazir, hareini nazir. To Adinami, Imam hareini nazir, the chayev al kolachas vachas. He's chayev for each Neziros. And again, we're going to soon see what it means you're chayev for each Neziros. Since the example of the ein shvuah chalal shvuah was a case of shaloi oichel, so the Tana mixed in an oichel factor into the Neziros as well. Tananami gabe nazir im oichel. Now, what does it mean? The chayev al kol achas v'achas. The chayev al kol achas v'achas damrino Dr. Ran is loymar. The chayev linoig Neziros. He has to fear a full set of Neziros, which is 30 days. Al kol kabbalah v'kabbalah. So therefore, the chiyamar hareini nazir, the chayev shtei Neziros. That our Mishnah says that neder yesh neder b'soich neder. What does it mean? It means umoynish shloshim yoyim. He would have to count a full set of Neziros, which is 30 days, and then conclude it to maybe carbon, and conclude it with the whole process of finishing off Neziros. And then he starts all over again. That's how the Ran learns. There's other Rishonim will learn that no, it's both Neziros are chal on him at the same time, and if he violates his Neziros, he'll get 2 malchiyos for it. But we're going to stick with the Ran's pshat that it means consecutive. So to answer what Rav Chaim brought up, what does it mean neder b'soich neder? It means I'm able to make a Neziros even though I'm in the middle of a Neziros. V'nafkalon b'gemara. Maybe carbon, but the word Besoich stinks. Maybe carbon, and you bring a carbon. V'nafkalon b'gemara. Where do you know this from? Because it says in the pasuk Nazir lahazir. So from that double ocean, the korelei lahai gavna. Okay, now from Nazir lahazir, you see that even though there's an act of Neziros in place, he already said already Nazir. He says already Nazir again. That will have a chalais. Now, why is this called Neder b'soich neder? The korelei lahai gavna. Neder b'soich neder lefisha Neziros shnia hichala b'soich zman harishon. Because the second Neziris is being chal b'soich in the time period of the Neziris Harishon. Ella she efsher loy sheyimna oisa. You just cannot start counting the second set. Really, the second set starts immediately, but you cannot start counting the second set at sheyimna Harishon until you finish counting the first set. Dem isa the loy chayla b'shas nedra. Because if you're going to say that's not chal now at all, rather it's chal after 30 days, and that's why there's a second set of Naziris that has to be counted, that's impossible. Because there's nothing that was said, there was nothing that was done after the first 30 days are over to trigger a Naziris. The only mimer that was said, the only expression that was said, was right now. All right, and you know the voice is man. After 30 days, he's not making any nether. If you're not going to say it's chal now, it cannot be chal later. It's either now or never. And levada, you have to say my hashta hu de chayla. It's chal now, and that's why Mishamachi can only yesh neder b'seich neder, because it has to be chal right now. We don't start counting for it yet, but it has to be chal right now. Yes, he does. It's two independent kabbalah nazirs. Correct. That's right. And he starts all over.
This only thing good. Someone went to war.
She was out of extra stroll. When she came back to the stroll, they said, "Oh, that doesn't count." So Zot Gemara weiter, Zot round weiter. What about Shavuos Shaloi Oichel? Shavuos Shaloi Oichel Eini Chai Velachas. Kloimer b'Shavuos Loi Mishkachas Trei Chiyuvim. But Shavuos you cannot have two Chiyuvim. Loi Lilko Shtayim B'Achila Achas. Sai you won't get two Balkias for eating the one Isser. Why? The Mekivin Shamar Shavuos Shaloi Oichel Kigazeh Havalei Mush B'Voimet. Once he said that I'm not going to eat this kikar, he made a shvuah not to eat this kikar, he's mush b'vayimid. And like we said, if you're mush b'vayimid, you cannot have another shvuah chal on it. V'su loy chayla Allah shvuah shniya, and v'loy limnish time. You can't say that if you swore you won't eat this kikar, you count another 30 days. Because shvuah doesn't make sense. There is no 30 days. If someone said he won't eat this kikar, he's never allowed to eat this kikar. So the loy mishkachas law, he doesn't even have a possibility by Shavuot. Mashayke b'Neziris, where there are sets of 30 days, in the heat ain't a loy shtayim alachila achas, because it's mush b'voimed mikol mokaim mishkachas ba trei chiyuve v'shekapol nidre beis pa'amim. If you repeated Haneni Nazir twice, then limno shtayim mashayke b'Shavuos, this would not be possible to have by Shavuos.
The reason is because it's a little under the zone. It's not. If you would make a shvur that I swear I will not eat a 24-hour period. Then it says again, I swear I will not eat a 24-hour period.
No. The Rishonim speak about it beferish. The Rishonim speak about it beferish. The Rishonim speak about it beferish. If you said Hayoim, even if you said Hayoim has to mean today. Hayoim can't be tomorrow. The Tosha speaks about it. So let's see. Yesh neder b'seich neder k'dim hafarish v'azol v'asar hachi. The Amar Hareini Nazir Hareini Nazir. V'im Taimar Pazach b'Nadar the Mash Mekoinim the sign b'Neziris. So why would we start off with neder and now the Mishnah, when it elucidates what happened, the Mishnah talks about a case of Neziris. Yishloimar the Neziris nami iku neder. Neziris is also called a neder. The said Linder Neder Nazir. Avu Mikol Mokaim Amai Shavik Stam Nader of Pasach Bazeh. Dr. Toisvis, the Shlomo Mishum de Nedarim loy mishkachas neder b'soich neder. You cannot have such a thing. The Omer kiker ze alai koinem loy chayil won't be chal. Dein iser chal al iser. V'af ben Neziros de Omar the Neziros chal al Neziros. Why by Neziros as a chal? Lav lechayu v'tarti b'chad lamajoyim is not going to create a second iser in the same period of 30 days. Elo in sheyaser shtei Neziros zu achazu. The Bishlomo hasom ben Neziros shaykh lememer. It's possible to say Kish Omar based pam hareini nazar hayoim, even though both times he said hayoim, sheyochel haosef v'dibur sheni lamed yoim. You could add a second set of 30 days. Mashma lamed yoim chadoshim kipam rishona shamar hareini nazar hayoim. Now you'll say, let me just finish. Let's just finish inside. So when you said the second time hareini nazar hayoim, you're adding another 30 days. Sheretz aloymer lamed yoim. The Avahash Kilo Omar Lamajoy base pump. Even if you want to say Omar already Nazar Lamajoy, Wahada Omar already Nazar Elu Lamajoy. So what if he said specifically these Lamajoy? Davel Shmuel Kamoy Kayoim Hayoim Mikamokim Shloimer, the shiny Neziros. Neziros is different. Hoyel the Isla Kitsutsa Lamajoy, since there's a built-in set of 30 days of Neziros. Now we learn from the Torah. Yesh loden loimer shabola haisiv shloshim yom chadoshim. Ulekach shayich shaper lemeimar the chayil naziris al naziris ma'asazu achazu kedaprecious. Agabi neder. Let me just finish. Aval gabi neder the koinim the less lay elo lefima shemefarish adam nami afilu ki amar kikar zu alai koinim ayoim ene aser elo oisa yoim v'chid hadar amar zimna achriti koinim kikar ze hayoim. The asa lesser ulusufei lamacher. Don't say he means to add tomorrow. Kivan de mehayoim mashma. Mehayoim means today. It's only by Neziros where you could say such a thing. But by Nedarim and Hud and Shavuos, if you said hayoim twice, it means today. It doesn't mean tomorrow. Hilchach l'shayich l'meimer neder chol al neder. U'lahoytzev neder acher kamay b'Neziros kedaprecious. And don't say the neder will be chal, but it adds another day. And even on the same day, you don't say there's two Isurim Chal, then Isur Chal al Isur, Neziros and Isur Chal al Isur. Even by Neziros, you say the same thing, according to Toshus. So what are you asking?
So, it's not good. Ich kann nicht kriegen auf Neziros mit Nedarim because the Jewish was came at Toich, and said the Chachomim and said, I'm going to tell you what you said. I said, Hayoim. Oder even wenn sucht Hayoim, darf Hayoim sintig, nein, ich meine nur sintig nicht nur.
You're going on what you're talking.
So you see, Isaac, because you see this that so neither a shliach namas have to say manuch. Lo aviv deram le.
Yeah, it's only Neziros. The difference is Neziros. Correct. That's right. That's correct.
So
that's correct. You're right. Nether is just like Shavuot in that respect. It's only Neziros because it's a set of 30 days. That's correct. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Now, before we see the Gemara, there's a piece of Gemara that our Gemara is missing. And the Ran quotes a Gemara that we don't have. So that brings the whole different side. What happens if we don't learn this extra Gemara? Let's say we skip it like our Gersa skips it. We don't. Can we make a siyum? Right? Can you see it? Finish us. Can you make a siyum? That's the Shiloh. And it's actually discussed. There's a Sefer Har Tzvi that actually discusses. There's many Gemaras that we have missing because the censor took it out, right? So could you make a siyum on a Masechta if you're missing a half an Amud because the censor took it out? I can say what? So he brings down that a siyum is any limud that give you why do you make a siyum? To express a simcha for having made a limud, for having finished the limud. And that simcha really is only if you complete the limud. So even if the censor took stuff out, when you finish the Masechta without those parts that the censor took out, you have the full simcha of having finished a Masechta. And because of that, you're allowed to. There are cases where someone made a siyum on one blot Gemara. The stories. You could. If you have a simcha, but one block of hours so much. Yeah. If you have a full simcha of having finished something, then you could make a siyum. So technically, we don't have to learn this line if we don't want to. But the Ran tells us that there was such a girsa. That's right. We could if you have such a satisfaction of having finished something every day. That's right. You can have more sure to say skadal is skadal. Right. Okay. So let's see the Rab. Even the Omar, Hareini Nazir, Havalei Nazir. So this is a girsa that we don't have. Even the Omar Hareini Nazir, Havalei Nazir. Once he's a Hareini Nazir, once he's a Nazir. V'chi ochel tuva, and if he eats more, because he said Hareini Nazir im oichel. So if he eats another bite and another bite, umasrin be mechayiv al kol achila v'achila. So the nusha of the Gemara was, for every bite that he takes, if you tell him, if you take another bite, it's not really a bite, it's kazayis. If you eat another kazayis, it's going to trigger another chiyuv of Neziros. So that's what the Gemara is. The Gemara is saying that for every bite he takes, it will trigger another chiyuv of Neziros. So let's see what the Ran says. Adi de katani shvua shaloi oichel. Since the Mishnah used as an example of shaloi oichel, shvua shaloi oichel, tana nami hareini nazir im oichel. Ula oimlam gabi nazir lo yitzarech lemeimer im oichel. You don't have to say im oichel. So the Gemara's kasha was, if it's all totally nachila, then as many achilas as he makes, it should be mechayif him another Neziros. So the Gemara says that really it has nothing to do with the moichel. It's just we're just trying to illustrate that if you say already knows it twice, they're both chal. I believe so. So Zua Girsa Ksuba the Miktas Neschois. This Girsa is in certain Gemaras we don't have it. The Haki Perusha, this is how we would explain it. Even though Marani Nazir, Chada the Ispa Tarti Kashalei, it's a dual kasha. Chada Lamalei Limitalia Neziros Bachila. Why did the Mishnah mix Achila here? Why it wasn't just a straight Neziros? The Mekiva Domar Hareni Nazir, Havalei Nazir, V'chayiv Limalei Shtayim. So that's kasha number one. Why did the Mishnah need to even mix Achila here at all? The kasha lasu, and the second problem that the Gemara has is the Isla Neziros Bachila, Ba'areni Nazir Moichel. If that's how you express it with a Areni Nazir Moichel, you did link it to Achila. Chada Zib Nasagi. Then you don't have to say Hareni Nazir Moichel twice. You only have to say Hareni Nazir Moichel once, because now every Achila is going to trigger a new Neziros. The Kaim Alon Beperik Shavuah Shtayim Basra, the Misha Nishba Shaloi Oichel Kikar Zeh. If someone swears, I will not eat this kikar, so you might think that you're over if you eat the whole kikar, but that's not what it says in the Gemara. The Gemara says there that al kol zayis v'zayis shaboy nishba. It's actually a separate isser on every zayis. So he can make a shvuah on one kikar, and he can get 100 malchus for eating that one kikar. Why? Because he's swearing on every kazayis in it. Hilchach mishatol nezirusay be'im oichel. It's al kol zayis v'zayis shaboy tol nezirusay. Every achilas kazayis has the potential to trigger another Neziros. V'chi achol tuva kloimer zeisim harbe umasrin bei, and they warn him between each zayis bein kol zayis v'zayis loimar shim yoichlenu. If you eat now another bite, yischayev alav Neziros achas. You're going to be mechuyev to conduct another full Neziros. Then chayiv al kol achila of achila. I'm so happy that you just said that, because you know how the Ram always anticipates what you're going to ask and then answers it. That's exactly an example of that. V'nir behenai the lahachi be'inon the lisrubei ben kol zayis v'zayis. That was exactly your kasha. Zok Ran mishum de loyadif be'achilas halolu lischayev aleim Neziros, because these achilas are not strong enough to trigger another Neziros. Kishetolu behen milischayev aleim korban umalkis kishenishba shaloyochel kikazu. There's no, if in a regular case of shvuah shaloyochel kikazu, you would not give him malchus unless he was warned. For each kazayis, there's no reason to say that the linking achila to a chiyav Neziros should do more than what a shvuah would do. And by a shvuah, you would need a warning after each kazayis. So Nachaba, Ladivi Achilas Halol is Chayiv Alev Neziros, Kishetolaban, It shouldn't be stronger. Milischayvel and carbon umalchus kishanishba shelo yoichel kikazu. Uchashem shelo ischayev carbon umalchus veinon chiluk ben kol zayis v'zayis. You need some type of separation to make it into a new thing. Ila malchus basra, ila carbon b'shtei alamois. If you want to give multiple malchus, one for each kazayis, there would have to be hasra in between. And if it's also the carbon that you bring for a shoygeg, he would have had to forget. He would have had to forget that he made the shvua, remember it, and then forgotten again. Hachanami kishatol Neziros ben vo'inon sheyu asrois mechalkois. Devadai nehidam rinan. Although we say the misha nishba shelo yochel kikerzu, I'll call zayis v'zayis nishba, that you've sworn on each zayis afilu hachi im loy hisruboy el asra achas, if he ate multiple kazaysim with only one asra, ein aloy el achas. Because it would be the same thing if someone was over many malachas on Shabbos. He only gets one malchus if he was only worn once. The bechol yisur shabbatayra al chol zayis v'zayis ben nuchayev v'afilu hachi ein aloy kishtayim elo be'asrois chalukos. Well, the carbonami ein yichayev ala achas elo b'shtei halamos. Let the Ran just finish the sentence. Hachanami ki tol Neziros be'achilas kikar tzarich sheyehu hasrois mechalkos bein kol zayis v'zayis shaboy. You would need a special asra. So there was a new awareness in between each kazayis. The Eloi, if not, loy mikri ela achila achas. We would consider it one big achila. Loy mechayev ela ela chad Neziros kei nirali, very easy to mefarshim acherim bazeh masha loy nir be'ena.
So then you need and malchus. But if
the main point is it's achila achas. That is the main point. That if you didn't have something to separate them, then it would be considered an achila achas. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. It's stuck in achila here as well. The Bahraini Nazar, the example that the Mishnah could have given could have been without any type of tanah. Binami told Neziros bim oichel bechat haredi nazar im oichel sagale. It also would have been enough if he said haredi nazar im oichel. He only had to say that once. The ali the Israel lemisli the shvu b'achila and the michbol b'nami shaloi oichel shaloi oichel. By shvu you do need a separate shaloi oichel to possibly trigger another isser. The loy pshita sheinachayv alachas. Therefore, talei nami l'Neziros b'achila b'kafir. But really, all that was not necessary.
If he said, right away.
That's right. But we're talking about when he ate right away. Yeah, but we're talking about when he ate right away. So this shaila of if you make a shvu on a kikar, is it multiple shvuas on one on each kazayis, or it's one big isser, actually touches a big shaila in the Rishonim, and that is, we've discussed it several times. You have a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, and he has to eat on Shabbos. And you have an option. You have two options. You have tray for meat. He has to eat meat. You have tray for meat that you could serve him, or you have a live kosher cow that you could check. Do you do three big malachas? Shchita. There's malachas of shchita. There's melicha. There's bishul. There's many different averis that you have to do. But then once you do those big averis, now you have kosher meat you can eat as much as you want. Or better, don't do any big averis like Chilul Shabbos, but every half hour he'll eat a little bit of meat. He'll be over a small list. So the question is what is it better? Is it better to be over one big isser and then it's all good from that point on, or is it better to be over a whole bunch of little isurim? So it's not directly related, but you see the shaila by Shvuah. If it's one big isser, or if every kazayis is a separate isser, by eating an avela or a bosher treifa, every kazayis is a separate isser. So you just touched on that child a little bit. Okay, let's see the Gemara back here. I'm sorry. I think that's what they pass. But you have to Timtum Alev. You also Timtum Alev involved. This halacha is Ella Sha'amar Hareni Nazar Hayoim Hareni Nazar Lamah. If you said Hareni Nazar Hayoim twice, even Neziros will not chal Neziros. You have to say Hareni Nazar Hayoim Hareni Nazar Lamah. Now, when you say Hareni Nazar Lamah, so you start counting the second set of 30 on day 2, which means day 31 from the first Neziros, will be fine because that's not overlapping anymore. And the Ram will tell us once there's 1 day of Neziris, it automatically morphs into 30 days of Neziris because that's the standard term of Neziris. And the Rav Huna says the Migu de Kimitoisef Yoim Yisera, since his second utterance of Hareni Nazir does lead to a full new day of Neziris, which would be day 31. Therefore, Chayla Neziris Hal Neziris. Abul Amar Hareni Nazir Yoim, even by Neziris it wouldn't work. Ain't Chayla Neziris Hal Neziris. Shmuel argues and says, Afilu Amar Hareni Nazir Yoim, Chayla Neziris Allah. So here's the machlokes. So let's see how the Ram explains. Zok Teilagaran. Rav Huna says that you have to have added at least 1 day. The Migu de B'tois of Yoimi Yisera, Kloimar, the Chashamar Hareni Nazir L'mocher. When someone said Hareni Nazir L'mocher, Yesh b'mashmois devar. What do these words mean? Sheyimtza miyoy macharis ve'elach lamajoy. He's makabel on Neziris. That's going to start from day 2, which will terminate on day 31. Nimtza, practically, shenischayev machmas neder sheni yoim echad moisef al Neziris rishon. What is the practical difference of what he said when he said Hareni Nazir L'mocher? It created 1 extra day of Neziris. The chiv and the kaima love the beseches Nazir. They are Hareni Nazir Yoim Zeh Bilvad. Even if you said Hareni Nazir Yoim Zeh Bilvad, I'm a Nazir for only today, it doesn't matter. It automatically morphs into 30 days. Moinish Shloshim. Av says so too. Even though his Kabbalah Naziris was only mechayivim for a Naziris of 1 day, but it morphs. He which is chayiv makmas nidroi sheni limnas yoim echad moitzav al Naziris rishayna al karchay moina lamajoyim. It automatically morphs into a 30-day period. That is the shita of Rav Huna. Shmuel Amar afilu Hareni Nazir Yoim. Even in that case, Naziris chol al Naziris. The mashmalei the minazir lahazir nafkalon. He learns it from the chiddush that the pasuk teaches you. So even in normal you might say there's a special gilu in the pasuk lagab Neziris that here it will work. So that is the machlokes Rav Huna and Shmuel. Frek the Gemara Pasha the Kasha on Rav Huna. Rav Huna. In Rav Huna's case, what is our Mishnah coming to do here? Our Mishnah is telling us that by Neder you have Neziris Chal Neziris, but by Shavua not. According to Rav Huna, by Neder Gufa, I could find a place where it wouldn't work. By Hareni Nazir. So why are we contrasting Shavua with Neziris? Neziris Gufa, you can create that distinction. So it's not a lifloig v'lisnei b'didah, but similar to that. Rav Huna, adatana ein Shavua b'soich Shavua, lisni yesh neder b'soich neder, ve'ein neder b'soich neder. You could have stuck to Nedarim and shown you some places where there would be neder b'soich neder, and some places where there wouldn't be. Hareni Nazir Yoim, that's the case of yesh neder b'soich neder. But Hareni Nazir Yoim, then it's ein neder b'soich neder. So that's a good kasha. Zokimer kasha, it's not a tiyuta, it's a kasha. Why the Mishnah decided to do it this way? Zok to Gemara Vayter. So there's a long round. So say that again.
I just explained that Mishnah is explaining that there are times when there is no.
Oh, so you're saying very good. The Gemara doesn't slug up Rahuna. It's kasha. So that means the roots of are applicable. So your teretz is a good teretz. No, it's not a tiyufta. But the Ran, we're running a little late, so I can't do the Ran. But the Ran asks, the Ran ends up saying that what is the purpose of this Mishnah? And when I started the Mishnah, I added a little introduction that we're in the middle of highlighting the differences between Shavua and Neder. So it could have given that example. It could have given that example, but we're trying to highlight over here the difference between Shavua and Neder. Like what you said, like Shavua never works, and by Neder sometimes it works. So that's really what the Ran says. The Ran really learns the kasha is not a live like v'lisna b'didah, because we want to highlight the difference between Neder and Shavua. But why didn't the Mishnah be more clear and specify when it works and when it doesn't work? That's what the Ran says. Zokimor Tanam. Yesh Neder b'seich Neder, the ain't Shavua b'seich Shavua. Hey Chidami. What are the circumstances? Ilay Medamar already knows already knows Lamachar. That would be Rav Huna's case. The Kavasa Gabish Shavua. What would be the parallel case by Shavua? because it's two different sets of Yisurim. Well, Amai loy chala shvua shvua. Why wouldn't the second shvua be chal? The first shvua was on Ta'inim, the second shvua was on the oven. There's no problem with that. Ella, what are you going to have to say? El hechidami. What is the parallel case? The loy chala shvua shvua is kagoyin the amar shvua shaloy oichel Ta'inim, the chazer v'amar shvua shaloy oichel Ta'inim. That's where it's a shvua shvua. The kavasoga by Neziros. Hechidami. What is the parallel case by Neziros? The amar hareini nazar yom hareini nazar yom. The Katani, and the Mishnah says, under these circumstances, yesh neder b'seich neder. So this is an often kasha l'rafuna, kasha l'rafuna, it's fair l'rafuna. Amar l'rafuna, no. Masnis in the Amar, the case of the Mishnah where we say it works is you said hareini nazar hayoim, hareini nazar l'machar, which is Rafuna maintaining. This is the only time the second Neziros will be chal. What's the parallel case of Shvua? The Kavatzag Shvua. The Omar Shaloi Oichel Ta'enim. First he made a Shvua Shaloi Oichel Ta'enim. The Chazav Amar Shvua Shaloi Oichel Ta'enim V'Anovim. The second Shvua was not two separate Shvuas. I won't need Ta'enim and I won't need Anovim. No, I won't need Ta'enim and Anovim together. So there we say the Loichayla there, since the Ta'enim part cannot be Chal, the Anovim part is not Chal either. So that's how the Reb Huna learns. There's a lot of lumdas on this that we have to learn, but I got to finish the Gemara first. Break the Gemara. I'm sorry? What? You want to know is why is it not an Isser Moisif? I'm not sure. It's a good arc. Let's see if the Rav speaks about that. The Amar Rabba said, Shavua Shaloi Oichel Tainim. The Chazer Amar Shavua Shaloi Oichel Tainim Vanovim. The Achal Tainim. And then he went to the eight Tainim. The Hivrish Carbon. And he was Mafresh a carbon, which now says that his first shua is done with. Was his second shua chal? The chazav v'achal anavim havalu anavim chati shir ve'ein mevi'in carbon al chati shir. So what happened? First he made a shua shalachal tainim. That was chal. When he made the second shua shalachal tainim v'anavim, it couldn't have been chal because there was already an iser tainim. Then he ate the tainim and he discharged the original shua. Because once he violated that shvua and he brought the carbon, it's as if the original shvua is not there. So now let's go back and look at what happens to the first shvua. Now that what happens to the second shvua? Now that the first shvua is out of the way. So the case was the chazav anavim. Then he went and ate anavim. So what does he say? Havalu anavim chati shir. The anavim are chati shir because he didn't need to take them with it. The ein mevin carbon al chati shir, and you can't bring a carbon if you only violated part of the nether. Alma, what do you see from here? You say migu dechal shvu al anovim chayil nami al tainim. You see from Rabbi that the shvu was chal. The problem here is that you only were over the chatishir, but on them it was a good nether and it was chal. So it's a good shvu, I mean, and it was chal. So you, Rav Huna, is saying it's not chal. You see Rabbi says it is chal, and if it is chal, then how could you make that distinction? Zok to Gemara, Rav Huna was like Rabbi. What's the problem? Rav Huna doesn't have to agree with Rabbi. Rav Huna is allowed to argue with Rabbi.
I don't understand in this case anyway. Why, if somebody said, I won't eat, it didn't make me on the time frame, let's take a look.
That's forever.
Right, so why, if you brought a carbon, you discharge?
That's how it works. The shvua is over. You don't have to. Once you violate the shvua, if you eat again, you're not. You don't. The shvua doesn't last forever. That's how it works. We're learning shvuas. That's how it works. So I want to learn one more meisvei, and then we'll go back and learn a very important one. Meisvei. Misha nazar shtei naziros. Someone was minus 2 naziros. Manas harishon. He counted the 30 days for the first naziros. Veverish carbon. Okay, and then v'nishal olah. Then he was shoyl on the original Neziros. So he sat through Neziros period, he brought a carbon, and now the Mafreya, that Neziros disappears. So the halach is also like Shniya B'Rishayna. He made 2 Neziros. He was only shoyl on 1. So we'll say that the 30 days that he kept his Neziros will now take care of the second Neziros that he made, because the first one is gone. So what is precisely the case? Like Rav Huna's case, am I also a Shni B'Rishayna? How in the world could the first set of Neziros cover the second set? He didn't keep the full 30 days for the second Neziros. El Pshita must be the Amar Haredi Nazar Yoim, and it must work. You have a raya works. Utsiyuta de Ravuna. So we'll worry about the teretz later. I want to learn to run on this last shaila where we had a kasha on Rafuna because we were looking for a parallel case. So let's just quickly review what the kasha on Rafuna was. The Gemara, the Mishnah that the Gemara quotes is comparing Shavua, which is not chal, to Neziros that is chal. So the Gemara said, "Hey chidami, the Amar already knows Hayoim, that would not work with Rav Huna." So Rav Huna had to say that what is the case where we're saying that by Neziros it is chal, and by Shavua is not chal, is the Amar already knows Hayoim, and in this parallel case, it will not work by Shavua. What's the parallel case by Shavua? The Kavasaga by Shavua, the Amar first shaloichal ta'enim. So that was the first Shavua. The Chaz of Amar Shavua shaloichal ta'enim ba'novim, and there Rav Huna holds it wouldn't be chal at all, and the second Shavua is not chal at all. So it's not like Rabbi who says that if you ate anovim later on, it's chatzi shir. It's not chatzi shir. It's nothing at all because the second Shavua was not chal at all. Rabbi held the second Shavua is chal, but you don't get malchus for eating adam because it's chatzi shir, and Rav Huna says the second shvua would not be chal at all. So let's look at the Ram now. Yesh neder b'seich neder. Hey chidami, what is exactly the case? Ilemu de amar hareini nazar yoyim hareini nazar l'mocher udikava sagab shvua. Amar shvua shelo echel teinim v'chazar amar shvua shelo echel anovim amayla chayla shvua l'shvua. There for sure it should work because the second shvua has absolutely nothing to do with the first shvua. Zokteran, yesh loymar, the high damala maksha, loimer shvu shelo echel ta'enim, the chazer v'amar shvu shelo echel anovim. The maksha looks at it. We're trying to find what's the parallel case to Haredi Nazar Hayoim, Haredi Nazar Lamocher. The maksha's suggestion of what a parallel case is one shvu on ta'enim, one shvu on anovim, which have nothing to do with each other. Rav Huna obviously doesn't learn that way. He learns it's comparable to the second shvua being ta'enim and anovim. So what exactly is the root of the difference of this opinion? V'chim Farkina, and the Gemara answered, the Ran's trying to drill down into the root cause, the root svara that makes the Makshin look at it from this perspective and the Tartzin look at it from a different perspective. This is exactly what the root of the shaila is. The Maksha Azal Basardina. The Maksha doesn't focus on what you said. The Maksha focuses on what the net result, the halacha lamaisa of what you said would be. Umetaritz basar lishna, and the metaritz is focusing on what the words that you're articulating are. So this is how it unfolds. V'hachi makshi vaday ki amrat b'hareni nazar hayoim hareni nazar l'mocher. Surely, when you say hareni nazar hayoim hareni nazar l'mocher, it's for sure it makes sense. The Neziros chol al Neziros. You know why? Hainu mishum dechi amar hareni nazar hayoim. When he said hareni nazar hayoim, kibul alav shloishim yom harishonim. That's an acceptance of 30 days of Neziros starting right now. Dechi amar hareni nazar l'mocher. When he made his second statement of hareni nazar l'mocher, kibul alav shloishim ve'echad. He was makabel upon himself the 31st day. Ulafi she'ein Neziros pechusim mishloshim yom. Since the minimum Neziros, even if you specify, I only want to be a Nazir for 1 day, it automatically morphs into 30 days. Tzarech limnois shloshim achem. So you're forced, that 1 day that you were makabel, you're forced to keep Neziros for 30 days. Nimtza she'ein nidroi sheni mishutif im neder rishon klal. Based on the result of what you said, your second Neziros starts on day 31 and goes for 30 days, and in fact, there is no overlap at all. Ela kol chad v'chad koi b'panavshe. Each Neziros stands independently. The first one starts today and terminates in 30 days, and the second one starts on day 31 and continues for 30 days. The chivin shekain, if that's the result, the net result of psak halacha of what a Nazir is, then the kavasaga by Shavua, if you want to look for a parallel case by Shavua, you have to find a case where they do not overlap at all. So therefore, nami loy mishkachas lo ela ba'omer Shavua shelo echel ta'enim because of Amar Shavua shelo echel anovim, because there's absolutely no overlap. The chihai gavno afilu b'Shavua nami chala Shavua al Shavua. So the Gemara is asking, according to Rav Huna, there's no distinction in such a case. If there's absolutely no overlap, there is no difference between neder and shvua, because even by shvua with zero overlap, it will be chal. Elavadai miditnan b'shvuas. Since the Mishnah in Shavuos tells us that ain't shvu b'tach shvua, it has to be when there is overlap. The kavasa b'nedarim, katani yesh neder b'sech neder. You have to find a case where by neder there's overlap and it works, and by shvua there's overlap and it doesn't work. The chashal Ravuna, that will be shver according to Ravuna, because according to Ravuna, it never works with an overlap. Umerfarkinon, so the Tartan comes along and says no. Amalach Ravuna. Masnisin the Amar Haredi Nazar Ayoim Haredi Nazar Lamach. Kloimar, Loy says Basadina. Don't look at the net result that it leads to. Its result is a second set of Neziros that doesn't overlap the first set of Neziros at all. That's not what you're supposed to focus on in this comparison. Elazil Basar Lishna. Focus on the words that he said. The Chiyamar Haredi Nazar Lamachar. What he meant was Mimachar Bat Shloshim Yom Kamar. I meant it should start tomorrow. So there's a 29-day overlap. It's as if he said, I want to be a nazir in one member. I want to be a nazir today, and I also want to be a nazir tomorrow. 29 days of the first nether will overlap the days of the first of the 29 of the first nether will overlap the days of the second Neziros. Even though Allah Alamaisa, we don't do it that way, but that's what he's saying. Even though the second Neziros doesn't actually net in an actual Neziros being chal for the first 29 days, because the first Neziros is still active. But if you focus on the articulated words, Chayil Nidre le'inyin sheyehei yom shloishim ve'echad shloishim shal Neziros shniya. It works because since I'm starting to count on day 2 of the first Neziros, it ends up creating a Neziros on day 31. Shareyu kach nader, because that's what he said. Nimtza. So based on looking at what I articulated, not on what the Psak Halacha was, Nimta shachoftes yomim min Neziros rishona chol Neziros shniya. On the last 29 days of the first Neziros, the second Neziros was chal on those 29 days. So there's an overlap that was chal by Neziros. Le'inyan, it's not chal that it actually creates a second Nisr, it's chal because it has a certain impact. Shetehei yom shloshim ve'echad l'Nezirusai, that day 31 will be a day of Neziros. Because of a technicality that you cannot keep a Neziros, a set of Neziros, less than 30 days. So there's just a technicality. There's a minimum of 30 days, so you have to supplement that one day with an additional 29 days. Now, what would a parallel case by Shavuos be? Is that was the first Shavuot. The Chaz of Amar Shaloich Tenim there's an overlap, and we say there Lechayla Shvu Besraisa Al Tenim Klal. There it's not Chal at all. So while by Neziris it is Chal with an overlap, by Shvua it will not be Chal with an overlap. The less Leila Ravuna Shetachol Shvu Al Shvu. Ravuna holds that a Shvu will not be Chal on another Shvu. Afilu B'Koila. So that's what you were asking. Why isn't it Isser Moisif? It's really Isser Koil more things. Ravuna holds Isser Koil does not work like Shvuah. So that's the round how he learns this shakal attire between the Makshin and the Tarchin. But Dr. Ram, let's finish. I don't like this prat. I don't have a Gishmak in this prat, Dr. Ram. Just like you want to say that the second Shvuah will not be Chal al Ta'anim. Because you swore on them already. Well, then, Kach Neziris Shniya Eina Chala Be'eshem V'Tisha Yom Rishayim Mipnei Shekvar Nozer Behem. Dr. Ram, the Neziris will not be Chala the first 29 days. So I don't like that distinction that you look at as Nusach. Because Lamaisa, the Neziris is not Chala. It's not working. Lefichach Ani Omer, the Chiamrinon, the Chazer V'Omer Shvua, Shelo Oichel Teinem V'Anovim, Hachik Omar. This is what it means. Shelo Oichel Oisom Ka'achas. So up until now, the Ran was learning that the Ta'enim Anavim are two individual Asurim. So that's already Isser Koil. But now the Ran's learning that the Te'inim Anavim meant, which is how I touched originally based on the Ran's second shot, that the Shvu was I've only took together. That's how it fits in well. But Rabba argues, and he holds, Migu de Chayla Shvua ala Novim Chayla Nami Atein. Rabba argues in Rafuna and holds it will be Chal. The Nafkamina, what will be the Nafkamina halacha? Shim Ochal Teinim Ve'anovim Behelam Shvua Rishoina the Hisru by Mishum Shnia. We have to find a case. Now there won't be any Isser for Teinim Chal because of the Shvua Rishoina. But what if when you ate it, you forgot you made the Shvua Rishoina? You forgot completely about the first Shvua. So you have a Shvua for Teinim, you have a Shvua for Teinim and an oven, and you completely forgot about the first Shvua. And now you're about to eat Teinim and an oven, and you got warned that you made a second Shvua. So the first Shvua is completely forgotten, but you only have a warning for the second Shvua. The halach is loike, there you will get malchus, because the second Chiv, the second Shvua was Chal. According to Rabbah, the second Shvua was Chal. So the nafkamina is if there was no malchus for the first Shvua, there would be malchus for the second Shvua. V'amrinon the Rav Huna lo shvila the Rabbah. The Gemara said that Rav Huna would argue with Rabbah, and he would hold the b'chayagav the shvila Rav Huna the loichayla Shvua shniya klal. According to Rav Huna, the second Shvua wouldn't be chal at all, and therefore you wouldn't get malchus even for the second Shvua. The chiyuv that te'enim loichayla, since it cannot be chal on te'enim because there's already a Shvua for te'enim, ein lo mokin klal. It has no place at all to be chal. Shehu al shneim yachad nishba. He's swearing on both. V'loy al anovim b'vad. Anovim alone would have been chal, but since he's saying anovim and te'enim together, te'enim cannot find any place to land because there's already an isser of te'enim in place. When Nedarim nami ilu haya dinan k'shvuos. If Nedarim had the same halacha of shvuos, hayu lo nuleimar. We should have said by Neziros the chiyuv achov tes yoim lo chayla Neziros shniya. Just the way it cannot be chal during the original first Neziris, it wouldn't have been able to chal on the 30th day either. He meant 1 unit of 30 days. He didn't mean just the Asr day 31. And therefore you see a difference between Nedarim and Shavuos. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll be Mamish Chayes Hashem on Shabbos. So on Shabbos, we're going to learn an hour before Mincha, and we'll also learn Motzei Shabbos. Oh, Motzei Shabbos we'll learn at 8 o'clock. Because 7 o'clock is the Avos Rabbanim, right? So we're going to learn at 8 o'clock. If whoever wants to come, nobody has to come. I don't know, very early. I'm not sure what time it is.